Ham House is a beautiful and austere building here in Richmond that has more aspects of 17th century life than any other house in the country. Could it be that because the house remains so unchanged, ghosts like the Black Widow choose to live here? You're an expert in the field of psychic investigation. What would lead you to the conclusion that it could be true that there are ghosts living here in Ham House?
Well, one thing that is very important to me anyway is that many of these old houses which you see in the background are actually built upon ley lines. Now, ley lines are lines of energy that crisscross the world's surface, and they conduct a form of energy which is yet has not been understood. But the most important thing is this energy actually conducts psychic energy. And also there's the element of, rather the ingredient of stone. You also find that many old buildings made of stone somehow harbour the energy within them, and it replays itself back at certain periods, such as planetary alignments, lunar cycles, etc., things like that.
What is an explanation for a ghost?
Well, there are different categories of psychic phenomena. I mean, first I just mentioned, they are really just pictures of events that happened in the past that somehow replay themselves without any intelligence, rather like a television picture. There are other categories of psychic phenomena which we call poltergeists, which you've probably heard of. We don't tend to take those too seriously because we believe that they're caused by actual powers within the human mind itself, subconscious powers. And a very few percentage of unexplained phenomena, and I stress that it's a very few, tend to be actual spirits that have somehow remained earthbound, trapped on the earthly plane, and they actually have some form of intelligence in that they want to communicate, make some sort of communication with their human counterparts.
Are you more likely to see a ghost in an old house like Ham House?
You're much more likely to see a ghost in those sort of conditions because of the reasons I've just described, yes.
What about an individual? If you're actually walking around an old house and you're thinking about the past, can that in any way make you more likely to see one?
Not really. If I could just explain why. Psychic phenomena are basically picked up by the subconscious mind. They're not usually picked up by the conscious mind, and actually the stronger the personality or the conscious mind of an individual is, the least likely they are to actually see a ghost. Hence, that's why people who actually go out to expect them and look for them don't tend to see them. But people, can I put it this way, when the subconscious is closer to the surface, when the two are more closely linked, such as with sensitive people, they are the very sort of people that are likely to pick up psychic phenomena.
You're the administrator of the house. Have you ever seen a ghost here?
Never, no.
So,
Nor even heard one.
Do you have any beliefs? Do you believe that there could possibly be ghosts living in Ham House?
I have to admit that I'm cynical about it, though I probably believe that some people are more sensitive than others and could well have had some form of feeling about it. But I have never, ever had any manifestations at all of ghosts or spiritual activity like that.
What about when you were actually renovating the place? Was there any suggestion about dust on a chair, did I hear?
Well, when we were clearing the chapel, yes, all the pews were covered with a fine film of dust, except for the place where Elizabeth Dysart would have sat, and there was a dust-free seat mark on the pew there.
And who was Elizabeth Dysart?
Elizabeth Dysart was probably the most influential person at Ham House. She lived here in the late 17th century. She did a great deal of work in extending the property after her second marriage to the Duke of Lauderdale, and lavished a great deal of money and attention on the property. Very ambitious lady, very remarkable lady. I mean, it's a whole story of her own. But we always think of Elizabeth as being the dominant person at this house, and if there is any spiritual presence, it's probably Elizabeth.
Are there certain times of year when you're more likely to see a ghost?
Well, I must say, I'm afraid this nonsense about Halloween being a specific time is just that. I'm afraid it is rather a load of nonsense. But there are particular times of the year, such as planetary alignments or lunar cycles, or the last full moon being on the October 31st, when people are much more likely to witness psychic phenomena.
Could I have seen a ghost and not have realised?
I very much doubt it. I think if you'd have actually witnessed a an entity, you would have known that it was just that, an entity.
And what are the signs of a ghost?
Sometimes, you know, you can't actually see them, but you can sense them. You can hear them. One can hear footsteps, you can hear raps on the walls. As I have said on numerous occasions, the temperature seems to drop quite drastically. And on occasion that you can see them, they usually tend to be transparent figures that almost invariably don't recognise the person that sees them, and after moving a certain distance, whether it's on the floor or above the floor, will suddenly just disappear without any trace.
Who is the Black Widow?
She's Elizabeth, the Duchess of Dysart, who lived in this house in the 17th century.
And how's she said to have been seen?
As a Black Widow, she went to visit her husband, her second husband's body lying in state in the chapel. And she's said to float across the end of the Great Hall and go into the chapel to pay homage to him.
What about the Earl of Dysart? What is his ghost all about?
Well, he used to take Christmas gifts to the workers, or his people who worked for him over the stables. And he used to walk across the courtyard tapping his stick. And then he'd go up the stairs to where they lived in the loft and tap, tap, tap with his stick up the stairs. And he was heard even after he died.
What about the spaniel? There's a spaniel that's supposed to live here.
He's supposed to run down the corridor. I haven't seen him, actually. I don't know about the spaniel. I'm not quite as convinced about animal ghosts.
What can you do if you've got a ghost and you want to get rid of him?
Well, we tend to use exorcism as a very last resort. I mean, the whole of our function is to conduct research into psychic phenomena, which means observing them, to spend nights in haunted houses, haunted castles, or private houses if we can get permission. So as I said, it's really to try and monitor them and to find out, in the few cases that we think they are intelligent entities, what the purpose is.
How long have people been spotting ghosts here at Ham House?
For my certain knowledge, since 1948. Not sure. The Tolmarsh family haven't said whether they ever saw any.
And they were here before that
They
date?
were here up to 1948, yes.
Now, do you personally believe in ghosts?
I do, yes.
Have you ever seen one?
I have seen a ghost, yes. Not in England.
Where did you see the ghost?
In the Isle of Man. We had a very old cottage. One night I went up to bed before my husband and went into our room, and there was a man sitting on the bed. And as I spoke to him, said hello, he just faded away.
What did he look like?
He was dressed in old clothes, definitely a worker. So I would imagine he had been one of the agricultural workers who'd lived in the cottage.
Did it frighten you?
No, not in the slightest.
So do you find the idea of ghosts frightening at all?
Nope, I love ghosts. I think it's exciting.
Do you believe then that Ham House is haunted with ghosts?
Oh yes, definitely.
What kind of things lead you to that opinion?
Sometimes I can talk to Elizabeth and things will happen.
This is Elizabeth Dysart.
Dysart, yes. If a bolt gets stuck on a door and I can't move it, I will call Elizabeth, come on, stop playing about with me, and the bolt will suddenly free itself.
So though you've never actually seen a ghost in Ham House, you've seen evidence that ghosts have been here?
Yes, and I can feel them and smell them sometimes.
What's the smell like?
It smells a bit like sweet briar, and in some rooms there's a hint of this smell on certain days, and then it's not there for 3 or 4 months, and suddenly it smells like somebody's sitting in the room smoking a pipe.
What about your cats? Do they have any sense of ghosts being here?
The cats do, yes. They will follow me around the house if they're allowed to, but there's one area on the round gallery that one cat will not go along. She will follow me everywhere except in this one area.
Does that particular area have any historical significance as to ghost sightings?
It does. According to one of the stewards we had, that was the place where she thought she'd seen a ghost. A lot of people were a bit sceptical about it because she was slightly eccentric, but I think she did see something.
You must talk to a lot of the people that work here and also people that have come and visited the house.
Yes.
To what degree do people agree with you that there are ghosts here?
About 50-50. It tends to be the ladies, I think, that believe more than the men.
Tomorrow we visit one of the most famous of all haunted houses, Hampton Court Palace.
and they conduct a form of energy which is yet has not been understood. But the most important thing is this energy actually conducts psychic energy. And also there's the element of, rather the ingredient of stone. You also find that many old buildings made of stone somehow harbour the energy within them, and it replays itself back at certain periods. Psychic phenomena which we call poltergeist, which you've probably heard of. We don't tend to take those too seriously because we believe that they're caused by actual powers within the human mind itself, subconscious powers. And a very few percentage of unexplained phenomena, and I stress that it's a very few, tend to be actual spirits that have somehow remained, such as planetary alignments, lunar cycles, etc., things like that.
What is an explanation for a ghost?
Well, there are different categories of psychic phenomena. I mean, first I just mentioned, they are really just pictures of events that happened in the past that somehow replay themselves without any intelligence, rather like a television picture. There are other categories of
Ham House is a beautiful and austere building here in Richmond that has more aspects of 17th century life than any other house in the country. Could it be that because the house remains so unchanged, ghosts like the Black Widow choose to live here? You're an expert in the field of psychic investigation. What would lead you to the conclusion that it could be true that there are ghosts living here in Ham House?
Well, one thing that is very important to me anyway is that many of these old houses which you see in the background are actually built upon ley lines. Now, ley lines are lines of energy that crisscross the world's surface.